Now it's Stephen Doyle here with Gary Breen following an incredibly dramatic second half. Fulham versus Liverpool, which Liverpool eventually saw out 2-1. They take the victory here. Gary, we're standing just in front of the goal where the penalty was given away by Sergio Rico.
Yeah.
A moment of madness which Liverpool supporters I'm sure will be thanking him for as they drink their St Patrick's Day pints this evening.
Oh, sheer relief more than anything at that moment in time from a game that Liverpool was so dominant, so comfortable in. Suddenly that mistake between Alisson, Van Dijk allowed Fulham back into it. 10 minutes or so to go, you're panicking then. And Rico just spills a routine save really, and in his panic then pulls Mane down for what looked a debatable penalty as such. But as we know, there's contact in the area. He gave the referee a decision to make. He was adamant straight away it was a penalty, and Liverpool were back comfortable in the driving seat again.
Did you think if that penalty hadn't been won by Liverpool, were they in danger of dropping 2 points here today?
Yeah, I think so, because obviously we said it throughout the commentary, as comfortable as Liverpool were, they didn't get that key second goal, and it's so important, no matter the gulfing between Liverpool and Fulham, that if you don't put them to bed and get that second goal and you're comfortable, you're always vulnerable to a mistake, which happened. Now, I'm not saying with 10 minutes to go Liverpool wouldn't have broken down the door, because I felt there's a calmness about their play. I didn't feel they panicked when it went to 1-1. It wasn't a case of shelling the ball forward and just going route one football. They still went about their business in the same way, passing through the thirds. They had belief that they would find a way through. But nevertheless, you have to say that that Rico mistake was a massive helping hand.
Mo Salah has now gone 7 consecutive league games without a goal, or games in all competitions, I should say. You know, I was looking at him there today, and he just doesn't look happy. I don't know what it is. You can't put your finger on it, but he just doesn't look like he's playing with the same kind of joie de vivre, shall we say, as he was last season when he got the incredible haul of 55 goals. It's so hard to do that in back-to-back seasons, but there just doesn't seem to be something clicking with him.
Well, I think more than anything, I think what you see in his mannerisms is his frustration. It doesn't seem like he's hitting the ball as cleanly as he did in terms of when their goals were flying in. But I wouldn't ever question his work rate. I still think he's a massive asset to Liverpool. And the very fact that his power, pacing, running behind is occupying so many defenders, the likes of Mane now is finding so much space. And he's the go-to guy, got the goal for him as such. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the fact that he hasn't found the net. I think he will. A player of his quality will always start scoring again. And the very fact that they're sharing it amongst the front three, and the fact that, unlike today, they've got a defence and a goalkeeper they can rely on. They don't need to score 3 or 4. 1 normally is enough. Unfortunately, they needed 2 today, and they got it.
Is it a case though as well, and I won't continue with Salah for too long, but is it a case where, because he is one-footed, that it's easier for defenders then to, you know, to deal with his threat? Have defenders now cotton on to what Mo Salah does, and it's just he has to find a new way of playing and scoring goals?
No, I understand that train of thought. I do think that the Premier League learns very quickly in terms of how good players are and how you can nullify them. And you're right, as a defender, you know he wants to go onto that left-hand side, so you may be kind of steering a little bit on the right side, but he won't refuse it. If you show too much, he'll drive down there, then cut across you, then you're looking for penalties. That's the concern. And if you think about top players, left-footed players, the likes of Messi, I mean, we know he's left-footed. It's very difficult to stop these guys. And I wouldn't panic. I would expect Mo Salah to get back amongst the goals now in the remainder of this season. And listen, look at his work rate, the influence he had in that game today, but also in Munich, where he didn't give those defenders a moment's peace, and that was the foothold for which Liverpool went on to comfortably get a great victory. So I think he'll be happy, Klopp, with his Salah. I think the frustration will come not from the management, not from the teammates, only from himself, that he's desperate to score goals.
Liverpool's last back-to-back wins in the league were back in January. They played against Brighton and Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
So when you look back, and they have been criticised maybe for their performances over the last few, well, since the turn of the new year, but they've got 3 wins in a row now, including the win against Bayern Munich. They're into the quarterfinals of the Champions League.
Yeah.
They're top of the Premier League table. You know, despite all the criticism they've been getting, they're in the driving seat of both competitions that they want to win this season.
Yeah, that criticism comes on the fact that they've dropped a couple of points, we'll say 5 or 6 points, to allow City back into control of the situation. But if you would have said to Liverpool at the beginning of the season, would you be happy to be top of the league going into the last 8 games or so? They would have snatched your hands off. And I think now what the international break gives you, and more than anyone, the coaching staff and the manager, is just a little bit of a breather, just to drop back a little bit now, regroup, reassess what they need. I think the mindset of Klopp now and his coaching staff will just be one of They just need to get all those international players back fit and healthy. That would be the major concern. And even he said it in the build-up. He's looking forward to those text messages after their games for their national teams, where they just give a thumbs up to say, "Listen, boss, I'm fine." Then it's the business end of the season. They've worked so hard to get themselves into this position. They must believe that they can do it.
I wanted to ask you as well about Manchester City, and also the fact that they've got games against Spurs and against Chelsea in the league still. In fact, they've got to play Spurs 3 times because they've been drawn with them in the Champions League. So when you kind of take that into consideration and what Liverpool have to play in their last few games, I know Kevin Kilbane has said Manchester City right the way throughout.
Yeah.
He's not changing his mind on that one.
Yeah.
What's your feeling now coming into the closing stages? Who's going to win this title?
Well, I'd be similar thinking to Kevin in terms of even when the point difference was starting to go heavily in Liverpool's favour, and notably that, say for example, that Crystal Palace game where they were able to get those 4 goals against the run of play as such, or sorry, not the run of play, but to get through that difficult game, and it suddenly went to 7-8 points. You're thinking, I could possibly be Liverpool, but I still felt Manchester City had been down this path so often, notably their manager has. I'm not saying that Klopp and this group of players won't be able to see it through. I just feel that City have got such strength in depth that even if they do have a lull in certain players, or fatigue or injuries come in, they've got players who will come in and won't make any difference to the level that they operate at. So I still feel, and I know they've got the advantage, but not that most Liverpool fans will want to hear this, I still think City will do it.
I wanted to ask you as well quickly, and the reason being because we've got such a large Irish contingent at the club, but Burnley, they lost their 4th game on the bounce yesterday. After such a brilliant win against Tottenham Hotspur a couple of weeks back, we thought, oh, Burnley are back here, but they've now lost 4 on the trot. Incredibly, yesterday they were playing against Leicester, who had Harry Maguire sent off in the 5th minute. Wes Morgan comes on, 35 years of age. They're playing with 10 men, and Leicester still come away from Turf Moor with a 2-1 win. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable, and that will be the concern. I think Leicester are probably one of the teams you wouldn't want to play, even if they go down to 10 men, because they're so good on the counter-attack with Vardy. They look after the ball. Now with Brendan Rodgers, they've got young players who can get them up the pitch. But there's no doubt, after that run of results that was highlighted by that Tottenham win of no defeat in 8 games, suddenly you're thinking, listen, it's the old Burnley, they're back to their usual selves, they'll climb the table. Now 4 defeats, you're straight back in it again. You can't help but identify that game in the coming weeks now against Cardiff as a massive one. It feels like it's between Cardiff and Burnley now, because we feel that Fulham, Huddersfield, they're done. So it's all to play for. Sean Dyche will talk about the experience that his team has. I know they finished 7th last year, but more often than not, they're used to being around relegation dogfights. They know what to do, and they'll have to just make sure they can grind it out.
And it's worrying as well, because the Irish lads there, like I saw Jeff Hendrick started against Liverpool. He had a poor game, you know. I was watching that game closely, and he wasn't at his usual best. And like, he was benched then for yesterday's game. Robbie Brady had to come off the bench. Stephen Moore's not getting in the squad. Kevin Long's not getting in the squad. In fact, Stephen Moore announced his international retirement, which I couldn't blame him for, really. He's 33 years of age. His contract's up in June. He's got to think about his future.
Well, listen, people talk about making that decision and whether it's one for your future. I think a lot of Irish players now know when they're not able to combine league football and international football, there's a time when they get to an age where they need that recovery, otherwise they can't compete at that level. And I think that's good of Stephen Warne that he's been honest enough to do that. He doesn't want to let anyone down in a green jersey. And I think at times throughout our history, a lot of our Irish players have stayed on a little bit too long, if I'm honest, and that is probably they're justified in doing so. It means so much to them to do that, but sometimes you have to put Ireland before your own personal gain as such. And I think the very fact that we don't have a conveyor belt of talent to retire some of our lads when they get older has a big saying in it. But certainly we'll look at the likes of Hendricks, Brady, Long now meeting up with the Irish team, and I think meeting up with Mick McCarthy, I think will do them the power of good now for this last part of the season with Burnley, that they'll go away, they'll be in an environment where the camaraderie will be really strong. Mick will cultivate that. They'll be in a team that's organised, and the criticism that has come at Brady and Hendrick in particular since the Euros was the fact that they haven't kicked on to that level that we thought they would do. Now under Mick McCarthy, they'll know exactly what their role is when they go onto that pitch, and they'll be expected to do it. They'll have a manager who will believe in them, and I think we'll see far better performances from those guys in particular under Mick McCarthy.
Just to ask you finally then about your old club, Wolves. what a night for them.
Fantastic.
Manchester United go to the Molineux.
Yeah.
They beat them 2-1. In fact, 2-1's probably, United got that goal in the 5th minute of injury time. They may not have really deserved it, but a thoroughly convincing win by Wolves. I thought they were absolutely superb. I watched that match in full last night.
And they have been, to be perfectly honest, all season. You think about a club getting promoted, and I know they're a good team. And essentially, they had a team in the Championship that had players who were Champions League players, out of Porto and stuff like that. So they were far good for that. I know people now saying it's probably the best ever team we've seen come up from the Championship, but it's still difficult, even though they've got this newfound wealth. We've seen it with Fulham, £100 million, and they haven't been able to lay a glove on the Premier League, so it's not easy. And massive credit must go to their manager. He's been absolutely brilliant in terms of what he's created, a team now who can sit back, defend deep, hurt teams on the counter-attack. They can adjust their tactics in terms of looking after the ball in other games, in terms of dictating possession with the likes of João Moutinho in midfield, Neves, those guys. So, and more than anything, the likes of Matt Doherty, Conor Cody, who themselves would have questioned whether or not they were good enough for this level, but under that manager, under his system, under his organisation and coaching, they've proved that they are. And Matt Doherty probably looks poised now to make the team of the year, which is an incredible achievement. It really is. And we've been blessed with Premier League right backs all throughout the years, the likes of Dennis Irwin in the Premier League, Gary Kelly, Steve Finnan, Stephen Carr, Seamus Coleman now as well. And now for Matt Doherty to play down a marker to make a Premier League 11, that's an incredible statement.
And as we speak, Watford are through, City are through, Wolves are through. Extra time's going on as we're talking here between Brighton and Millwall. Wolves will fancy themselves. Even if they got City in the semi-final, they'll fancy themselves to win that cup.
They will. I think we've really understood what Wolves were about when they got that incredible draw against Manchester City early on in the season, where how good they defended, how good and decisive they were on the counter-attack. So I think a lot of the teams will, I think Manchester City will probably hope to avoid Wolves in the draw, which is an incredible statement really, but all four of those teams now, whether or not it's Brighton that gets through, if it's Millwall, you wouldn't see them going on to win it. But if it's Brighton, all of them must be thinking their name could be on the cup this year.